Okay, so this evening we are going to work through Numeracy Paper 1 Intermediate Tier from the autumn of 2017. As with all of these, what I usually do to start off is remind ourselves about the grade boundaries that we're aiming for. Now, as you know, these change in the real exam every year, but in general, if we are aiming to get 40 marks, which is half of the marks on the paper, then you're pretty much guaranteed a grade C. If you get over 52, you're guaranteed a grade B, and so on. So what I've then done, and this is always nice for you to do in pencil, maybe if you finish the paper, is get a running total going of the marks, so it'll add up to 80, and then you can mark off, right, well, if I get to the end of question 7, and I'm really successful, then I should be on for a grade C. And any marks then that you gain in the grade B part of the paper will just consolidate that. Okay, so that's a useful little thing to guide you when you think how you're getting on. Then we come to the formula page, and with the formula page you were given two formulae, one for the area of trapezium and the other one for a volume of a prism. But there are other formulas that it's really useful for you, well, you need to remember them, but if you're the sort of person that crams them in just before you come into the room and then forgets them all, the first opportunity you get when the exam invigilator tells you to start writing is to do a bit of extra work here. We practiced trig in the last couple of weeks, so these are hopefully familiar to you. Now, on a paper 1, it's extremely unlikely that there's going to be a trig question, but the more times you write them out, the more likely you are to remember them. So those trig triangles are useful to know. Then the other two triangles that are worth remembering are the one that links speed, which is distance over time, and the one that links density, mass, and volume. Now, you're more likely to have been familiar with those through your science lessons and your maths lessons, but nevertheless, they are examined. So those are the sort of 5 little triangular, quick methods of remembering formulae. Then we come to the circle. With the circle, if you're given its radius, its circumference, which is the distance all the way around the outside, is 2 pi r, and its area is pi r squared. You need to know those, you aren't given them. And if the circle becomes a cylinder, and you know its height, then the volume will be pi r squared, which is the area of the circular part, times the height. So you need to know those. The more times you write them out, the better chance you've got of remembering them. Again, they could ask you some circle questions on a paper 1, but it's more likely it would be paper 2. In this corner, there are 3 metric to imperial equivalences that you're required to know. You're expected to know that there are 8 kilometers is approximately the same distance as 5 miles. You're expected to know that 1 kilogram in weight is approximately the same as 2.2 pounds, and pounds has got the letters LB. And then the final equivalence you're expected to know is 1 litre. And 1 litre is approximately 1.75 pints. And then the other key equivalence is that 1 litre is equivalent to 1,000 cubic centimetres. Okay, you've got to learn those, but if you're just learning them quickly and you just want to write them down so you can not worry about remembering them later on, it's worth putting those in. And then the other place where students make common mistakes is when dealing with time. So in this little square down here, remember, 15 minutes is a quarter of an hour. which as a decimal is 0.25. So if you've got an hour and 15 minutes, you wouldn't be writing 1.15, which is the most common mistake people make. 30 minutes is half an hour, which is 0.5, and 45 minutes is 3/4 of an hour, which is 0.75. So the more times you get in the habit of just writing those out, the more likely it is they're going to stick. And sometimes you won't even use any of those on a paper. Sometimes you might use part of them. Okay? So this is a paper 1. Means you're not allowed to use a calculator. So question 1. In case it hasn't been mentioned to you before, with these maths papers and numeracy papers, the questions get progressively more challenging as you go through the paper. So it starts off with the grade E questions and ends up with the grade B questions. Pontarddulais Dragon's Bridge opened in Rhyl Harbour in autumn 2013. The harbour development cost £9.8 million. 4.3 million of this money was spent on Pontarddulais. How much was spent on the rest of the harbour development in Rhyl? So it's always a good idea, if you've got 2 different colour highlighters, 2 is good, have one of them so that you're always highlighting what the question is. So that, I mean, not so much for these early questions, but where you've got a question you've got to do a lot of maths in, before you move on, you want to think, right, have I answered the question? I've highlighted that now. This is what I'm looking to do. How much was spent on the harbour development in Rhyl? So the maths I have to do here, even though I've given a choice of answers, that doesn't mean don't do any workings out. So I've got to find out if the development was 9.8 million and 4.3 was spent on the bridge, how much was spent on the rest? So what they're asking you to do there is a subtraction. As I've said to my class many times over the last couple of weeks, with GCSE maths, they're going to be testing things you learnt in primary school. Non-calculator, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division is something you are going to be need to rely on to answer these questions. So if it's something you're rusty at, then you need to practice. This one's straightforward. 3 take away 8, 3 from 8 is 5. 4 from 9 is 5. So it's going to cost 5.5 million, the rest of the harbour development. But now I've got to choose the right one of these to do. 0.5 of a million is half a million, which is 500,000. So this one is 55,000, 550,000, 5,500,000, 55 million, 550 million. So the 5.5 million is that one. A newspaper at the time said Pontarddulais provides the final link in 15 miles of traffic-free cycling across Conwy and Denbighshire. Write 15 miles in kilometres. So this is a conversion from miles into kilometres. So I can go back now and look at my conversions that I've had to learn, and I can see that 8 kilometres is equivalent, that little wobbly equal sign means it's approximate. So it's approximately equal to 5 miles. I need to change 15 miles, so underneath the 5 miles, I'm going to write 15. And what I need to do is work out what goes there. So what I'm looking for is how many times bigger in miles do I have to be? Well, it's 3 times as far. 5 times 3 is 15. So the distance is going to be 3 times as far in kilometers as well. So my answer is 8 times 3, which is 24 kilometers. And then part C. The height of the mast on the bridge is 148 feet. Use the conversion 1 foot is 30 centimeters to calculate the mast of the height in meters. Height of the mast, not the mast of the height. So that's what we have to do. Well, if I know that 1 foot is 30 centimeters, I can work out what 180 feet is in centimeters. It's going to be 148 times 30. So it's going to be a non-calculator method for multiplying that. And if I ignore the 0 bit first of all and just do this, so 3/8 are 24, 4 down, unit down, carry the 10. Then we do 3 times 4 is 12, add the 2, 14. 1 times 3 is 3, add the 1, 4. So 148 times 3 is 444, so times 30 will be 4440. And that will be in centimeters. The question wants me to turn that into meters, so you need to know that there are 100 centimeters in a meter. So I have to divide that by 100 to turn it into meters. And when I divide that by 100, that's going to have the same effect as the decimal point no longer being there, but moving twice to be 44.4 meters. Okay, so we're dividing by 100 to turn the centimeters into meters. So the marks for that question, it's just a straightforward B mark for that. Okay, so the B mark is just the examiner is looking for the answer. Whether you put method or not makes no difference. For part B, there's a method mark, and the method mark is for working out what the multiplier is, and then multiplying to get the answer of 24. And with part C, the method mark is for multiplying by 30. There's an answer mark if you keep it in centimeters, and the second answer mark is for doing what they've asked you to, which is to put it into meters. So that's question 1. Question 2. 4 different supermarkets have special offers on the price of lemons. So we've got a table then we've got to figure out. So supermarket cost for go. The lemons usually cost 40 pence each, but now on offer, so you buy 3 for the price of 2. Edges marked, a net of lemons have 4 lemons in for 75 pence. For Uno, a bag of 5 lemons for 76 pence. And Greenway, they sell them at 26 pence each. Alid needs 6 lemons to make the lemon cakes for the birthday party. So there's some information there that we need to use. Okay, so I've used a different color highlighter for that. In this part of the question, you will be assessed on the quality of your organization, communication, and accuracy in writing. So that's what these +2 marks are. Okay, there's 5 marks for doing some maths, and 2 marks for how you lay your work out. Doesn't mean that you have to write a story, it just means you have to be clear and accurate with what you're doing. Alid only has time to go to 1 supermarket. Calculate how much Alid would pay in each of the supermarkets. In which supermarket will he be able to get the lemons he needs for the least amount of money? So when I think I've finished, that's when I'm going back to check. So, as far as organisation is concerned, I'm going to start with cost for go. So, at cost for go, 6 lemons, buys 3, for the price of 2, he needs 6. So 6 he'd get for the price of 4. If I double that, I get 6, I double that. So they're going to cost me 4 lots of 40 pence. So 4 fours is 16, so that will be £1.60. So that's how much 6 lemons will cost him in cost for go. Then I'm going to go to edges. A net of 4 lemons costs 75 pence. Well, I need 6 lemons, so I need to buy 2 nets. So 2 lots of 75 is £1.50. At food uno, a bag of 5 lemons costs 76 pence, so I'm going to have to buy 2 bags because I need 6 lemons. And that's going to come to £1.52. And at Greenway, I need to buy 6 lemons times 26 pence. Now, to work that out, I need to do it as a multiplication like that. However you want to do it is up to you. 6 sixes are 36, 2 sixes are 12, and 3, 15. So that's going to be £1.56. Right, so let's go back to the question. Have I used the information I'm given, the 6 lemons? Yeah, okay, so I've used that little bit of info, so I put a tick there. Calculate how much Alid would pay at each of the supermarkets. Done that. In which supermarket will he be able to get the lemons he needs for the least amount of money? Well, I haven't done that, so now I have to look, and I'll see that the cheapest he's going to get is Edge's Mart, because they're only going to cost him £1.50. So my conclusion so he should shop at Edge's Mart. Have I answered the question? Yes, I've worked them all out, and yes, I've identified which supermarket he will get for the least amount of money. So I should be on for 7 marks. There are 4 marks, 1 for each of the totals that you've worked out. So there's 1 mark for £1.60, 1 for £1.50, 1 for £1.52, 1 for £1.56. And there's an explanation mark, which is an E mark, for your conclusion. So if you didn't answer the yellow bit, you could still have got 4 out of those 5 marks. And then for the OCW, one of those OCW marks is for being clear in what you're doing. So I can tell what each line of maths is doing. At cost for go, at Edges, at food uno, at Greenaway. So I get 1 mark for it being easy to follow, and then generally the other mark is for being consistent with your units. So I've got 40 pences, pences where I'm talking about pences, pound signs when I'm talking about pound signs. So that's where the OCW +2 comes in. 1 for organisation, 1 for being consistent. Okay, part B. Allied can use any leftover lemons to make muffins. Which supermarket gives the best value for money? So now it doesn't matter that he only needs 6, it's how many more he gets for what he buys. So if we go back and look at what he's got here, if he goes to Cost for Go, he won't have any lemons left. If he goes to Edges Mart, where he's bought 2 nets, that means he's going to have 2 lemons left over. If he goes to Food Uno, then he's bought 10 lemons. So he's got 4 lemons left over for only an extra 2 pence. And at Greenaway, he's got exactly 6 lemons. So it's a choice between Edges Mart and Food Uno. And at Food Uno, he buys 10 lemons for £1.52. So which supermarket gives the best value for money? Food Uno. And then you want to say something like, because he gets 2 lemons more than at Edges, for only 2p. So you could have said something like that, or you could have also said 10 lemons for £1.52. He can get 10 lemons for a cheaper price than in other supermarkets. You get more lemons for less price. Anything like that, so long as you've identified the right supermarket. Question 3. Mehmet needs a new fence for one end of his garden. Fences are constructed using panels and posts. Posts are needed between each fence panel and at both ends. How many posts are needed for a fence made with 34 panels? So that's what we're trying to figure out. Now if you look at the diagram helps, because you can see, because there's a post, has to be a post at each end, you're always going to have one more post than you are panel. So with 3 panels, I've got 4 posts. If I had 4 panels, I'd have 5 posts. If I had 34 panels, I'd need 35 posts. Part B. Mehmet wants a new 1.5 metre high fence for his garden. Fence panels come in different lengths. The posts Mehmet wants to use are all the same size. Mehmet has the following information. So it's giving me the dimensions of the post. It's a square post, so the sides are 10 centimetres and the height is 1.5 metres, and they cost £14 each. Then this panel is 2.5 metres long, 1.5 metres high, and costs £40 each, and so on. So there's no question there. It's not asking you to do anything. That's just information. The fence Mehmet wants to make is 8.5 metres long, including the posts. He's started to sketch a plan as shown below. So post, panel, post, right the way up to there, 8.5 metres. Mehmet needs to use 5 posts. Work out one possible choice of panels that Mehmet can use. Calculate the total costs of the posts and the panels for this choice of fence. So the fence and the posts have to exactly fit that 8.5 metres. And I know that I'm going to be buying 5 of these posts. And each post has got a width of 10 centimetres. So the total width of the 5 posts will be 5 lots of 10, 50 centimetres. So total width taken up by the 5 posts will be 5 lots of 10 equals 50 centimetres. Now you need to know that 50 centimetres is the same as half a metre. So half a metre, 0.5 metres of that 8.5 metre distance is going to be taken up by posts. So now I need to know how much is going to be taken up by the fence panels, which is going to be 8 metres, which is going to be 8.5 less that. So I need 8 metres of fence panel. Work out one possible choice of panels. So in order to make up 8 metres, there are different combinations here that would do that. But the easiest one is 2, because 2 goes into 8 4 times. So I get a 4 of those panels, and that will make up 8 metres. Okay? You could have 2 2.5s, which is 5, and 3 of those, but it's a bit more work. The easiest solution would be 4 2-metre panels. So I'm going to buy 4 2-metre panels. Have I answered the question? Calculate the total cost. No. I decided I need to buy 4 of them. So the total cost, each one of those is going to cost me £40. So 4 4s are 16. £160. Part C. It costs 2 pence to paint each 100 centimetre square of a fence post. How much will it cost to paint the 4 vertical sides of one post? So as soon as I see centimetre squared, I'm thinking area. Okay? So I need to figure out the area of each side of this post. So the area of one side of a post, and what they're starting to do now as the questions get a bit more difficult is they've mixed the units up. Okay, that's in centimetres, but the height of it is in metres. They're telling me the area is in centimetres squared. So rather than turn this 10 centimetres into metres, I'm going to turn the 1.5 metres into centimetres. Okay, and that's going to be, there's 100 centimetres in a metre, so 1.5 will be 150 centimetres. So to find out the area of one side of post, it's going to be 10 times 150. Length times width, because it's a rectangle. It costs 2 pence to paint each 100 centimetres squared. So if you now think that I've got 1,500 centimetre squares on that side of the fence, and every 100 of those is going to cost me 2 pence. So I want to see how many 100 centimetre squares I've got. So I'm going to do that divided by 100. So number of 100 centimeters squares will be 1,500 divided by 100, which is 15 of them. And each of them cost me 2p. So it's going to be 30 pence per side. 4 sides on a post. So 4 lots of 30 pence is £1.20. How much will it cost to paint the 4 vertical sides of one fence post? £1.20. So the marks for that question. 3A is just a B1. You've either got it right or wrong. 3B, there's one mark which is an S mark. It's a strategy mark. Okay, so for figuring out, that's how much you need to fill with fence panels. So 8 meters will get you 1 mark. Then there are 2 marks for correctly figuring out whichever combination you're going to use. Okay, so I've gone for 4 times 2 meters. And then I haven't got this right. I forgot to work out the cost of the posts. So even though I've gone back to say, have I finished this question? I haven't, have I? So the total cost of the panels is £160. The total cost of the posts is £14 each, and I've got 5 of them. So 14 times 5, 5 fours are 20, £70. So the total cost of making the fence is going to be 160 and 70, £230. So well done if you spotted that and kept it quiet. No, now I've gone wrong again, haven't I? What have I done? Oh, okay. Yes, so it should be £30. So it should be £30, which makes that £120, and then 120 and 70 is 190, and I get there in the end. So then, there are 2 marks for the method of working out the total cost. and 1 mark for the final answer of £190. And then part C, which I have got right, is the method mark, 2 marks for working out the area and the cost per side, and then 1 mark for your final answer. Okay, so that's fence posts. Question 4, or a favourite of yours here, parallel lines. A number of paths are to be laid to show 3 new office buildings. A sketch of the architect's plan is shown below. The architect has shown a number of angles in his planning for the new paths. Calculate the size of each of the angles A, B, C and D. So, we have got parallel lines. When we've got parallel lines, we can start to identify these Z's. So there's a Z there. There's a Z here, if I extend that. So that one there is the same as A. So just because it doesn't extend doesn't mean you can't extend it. So if I can work out what A is there, it's going to be the same up there. Now what we have here is a straight line. So we need to know that angles on a straight line add up to 180. So the difference between 167 and 180. Back to primary school, you need to have a method for doing subtraction. The most common one I've seen used is this, where rather than write it as 180, you write it as 170 10. 7 from 10 is 3, 6 from 7 is 1, so it's 113 degrees. If you count that on in your head, it's absolutely fine. You don't have to show a method, but it would be really good that you get 113 from whichever method you've used. So I know that A is 113. Now I come over here, and with this Z, that B there is repeated there, because I have that Z there. So if I can find that one, I know that one. Once more, we're on a straight line. So B and 72 have to add up to 180. So B is going to be, again changing 180 to 170 10. 108 degrees. Then I've got another Z angle here on a different pair of parallel lines. If you notice, these have got single arrows to show that they are parallel. These have got double arrows to show that they are parallel. So D and C are the same because they're tangled up in that Z. The only problem is I haven't got any information down here to work with. But what I have got here is a little triangle. So inside that triangle, I also know angles have to add up to 180. And that 72 is on a straight line here as well. And the straight line there means that those two angles are the same, which means that one there is 108. So now, inside this triangle, I know two of the three angles. This angle here is going to be 180 less what those two come to, and those two add up to be 129. what I get if I add the two angles inside the triangle I know. So I add those up, I get the 129. Right, that is 170, 10 again, and I get 1, 5, 51 degrees. If that's 51, we've got intersecting lines, so the opposite angles in intersecting lines are the same. So if that's 51, C is 51. And then we've got the Z, the last Z, if C is 51, D is 51 too. So there are other properties in parallel lines that you can learn, but if you don't like learning lots of things, usually you can just unpick them by following the Z angles and straight lines and intersecting lines. So marks for that, there's one for each of them. The one thing to say there is if you've made a mistake, if you had got C wrong, let's say you got C to be 60 degrees for some reason, but then got D to be 60 because you'd identified the Z there, you would still get that last mark. It would follow through your incorrect workings. Question 5. Fionn thinks the taller you are, the greater your waist measurement will be. She recorded the height and waist measurements in centimetres for 6 people. Draw a scatter diagram to display these measurements. Use the graph paper below. Right, whenever you are given a graph and the axes have been printed for you, it's really helpful if you figure out what each little square stands for. And it doesn't always stand for the same on each axis. So in this direction, we've got 10 little squares taking you from 150 to 155. So you're going 5 centimetres in 10 jumps. So each little square will be 5 divided by 10 equals a half. So each little square on this axis is a half. On this axis, I'm going 4 centimetres in 10 jumps. So it'll be 4 divided by 10, which is 0.4. So it's usually worth doing that first. So the first point we have to plot has got a height of 170, which takes us to there, and a waist of 82, which takes us to there. And when you're plotting a point for the exam, mark it with a cross. Don't do a faint little dot, because it may not pick up when the papers are scanned and uploaded onto the internet. So make sure you clearly show where the centre of that is. Put a tick underneath it, because I know I've plotted that one, in case I get confused with what I've been plotting. So the next point is 152, 72. So 152, each little square is a half a unit, so 2 squares is 1. So that's 151, that's 152. So it's going along that line, and I want 72, which is going to be halfway between 70 and 74, so that point is going there. Tick, done it. 174, 86. So there's my 86. 174 is going to be 2 squares in from 175. 155 and 74 is there. 178 and 90. So 175 is there. 2 squares over 176. 177, 178. And finally 162 and 78. 160, 61, 162. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sets of data, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points. Look at the results that Fionn has recorded for these 6 people. Do they appear to support her thinking? So when you come to scatter graphs, it doesn't take a huge amount of revision. You know they're linked to correlation. So the points are either positively correlated if they appear to be rising in a sort of straight line, which they are. They'd be negatively correlated if they were falling in a straight line, which they aren't. Or there'd be no correlation if they were all over the place. That's clearly rising in a straight line. So the answer is yes. And you can say because there is positive correlation. That's what they're looking for you to see. And then part C, give one reason why using this scatter graph to estimate the waste measurement of other people is unlikely to give reliable results. So there's lots of things they'd give you the mark for here. I'll just read them out from the mark scheme for you. Yeah, you won't be able to read that. So the measurements for these 6 people show correlation, but people don't come in standard sizes. There's only 6 people. Not all people follow the trend. Waist and height measurements are not directly proportional. Not enough data. You need more data to tell, because she could have chosen the people on purpose to prove her point, because some people are thinner than others but the same height. Some waists may be the same as others. So it's basically anything like that that's just saying, well, you haven't really got very much data there to go on, and that would get you that E mark. So for that question, there's 2 marks for plotting the points. If you got 4 out of the 6 right, you'd get 1 mark. And then for part B, there's an explanation mark for yes and the correlation, and an explanation mark for that as well. So question 6, we're comfortably into the grade D work now. True Tool is a tool hire company. Hire charges. The cost of hiring a cement mixer in pounds. 13 times the number of days plus 26. The cost of hiring a jet washer in pounds. 9 times the number of days plus 38. Sarah hires a cement mixer for 5 days and a jet washer for 7 days. So that's the information that we're going to need to make sure we use. And then what they want us to know is how much change would she get from £200. So first of all, let's work out the cement mixer. So the cement mixer is 13 lots of 5. 5 threes are 15. 1 5 is 5. £65. And then we've got to add on to that a £26 charge as well. So 65 plus 26 £91. Then we've got the jet washer, which is 9 times the number of days, which is 7 days. I can do that one from my times table. 9 sevens is 63, plus the extra 38. Is £101. So the total charge will be £91 and £101, £192. Check we've answered the question. How much change would she get from £200? No. That doesn't answer the question. That does answer the question. Part B. Geraint hired a cement mixer for a number of days. Lois hired a jet washer for the same number of days. They each paid the same amount of money. So the same number of days and the same amount of money. Now, if we'd been practicing equations, which come the summer we will have been practicing, then I would set this up as an equation. But probably at this point, an easier way of doing it would be to trial and improve. So if I try first of all 1 day, so for 1 day, the mixer will cost 13 times 1, add 26, which is 13 and 26, £39. For 1 day, the washer will be 9 times 1 plus 38, which is £47. So it's not 1 day because they're not the same. Let's try 3 days. So for 3 days, the mixer is going to be 13 lots of 3 plus 26, which is 39 plus 26, which is 65. The washer will be 9 lots of 3 plus 38, which is 27 plus 38, which is £65. So they are the same, so it's 3 days. If that had worked out to be too big, we'd have gone back to 2 days. If it had been too small, we'd have tried 4 days. That's not the way I would do that if we were up to speed with solving equations. Okay? If you're any good at solving equations, the way you would have done it then would be 3, and if we call the number of days n, 13n plus 26 is the formula for that. And we'd want to work out when that is equal to 9n plus 38. And we solve that equation. Okay? And that would do the same thing. Okay? So we'll work through question 7 and then we'll take a break. So question 7. We've done this one in one of the progress checks. The diagram below shows a sketch of the existing gas pipes that run to and from T Gwyn. So there's T Gwyn. It also shows a proposed 180 metre gas pipe which is to be laid to provide gas to Kai Nia, which is there. The proposed pipe bisects the angle formed by the existing pipes at T Gwyn. So bisecting the angle is something that we did back in September when we did loci. Complete the scale drawing below to show the proposed pipe. You must use a pair of compasses to construct the angle bisector. Use a scale of 1 centimetre to represent 20 metres. So the first thing we're going to do is cut that angle in half. So this is where we need this, and hopefully some of you will remember that to cut that angle in half, we take the compass, we open it out. Doesn't matter how far you open it out. You stick the point in the part where the two lines that you want to cut in half meet, and you cross the two sides. Then you move your compass point to where one of those crosses, an arc in the middle, and then back to the other one, an arc in the middle. And the line we're going to draw is going to go through there. All we need to figure out is how long to make it. It's 180 meters, and 1 centimeter is 20 meters. So how many times bigger is that? 9 times bigger. 9 2s are 18. So I've got to draw one that's 9 times bigger than that, which is 9 centimeters. So the line that I'm going to draw, so what I've done there is I've put the 9 exactly on the end, so I know that when I start at 0 and go through my intersecting arcs, that point there is chi near. So that's 9 centimeters. To get those marks, the examiner has to see your construction curves. Otherwise, they'll just assume you've measured it. So the marks there's one mark for a 9 centimeter line. There's one mark for the correct method of bisecting an angle, and there's one mark for doing all 3 bits. And if you've got everything right up to there, which I didn't, you're on for a C. So we'll take a quick break there, and then we'll do the part B part.